I can call a roll.
Yeah, can we go ahead and roll, please?
Okay, Sue Frost, Eric Guerra, Mai Vang,
Here.
Kevin Spees,
Here.
and Garrett Gatewood. Director Guerra is supposed to be about a half hour late.
Can we go ahead and do the first item, please?
Item 1, mid-year budget update, fiscal year 2021 to 22.
Good morning, Chair Gatewood and Budget Audit Committee members. So only one item on the agenda today. So mid-year budget updates for fiscal year 21-22. There's not a whole lot of changes, but feel free to ask any questions along the way. As you recall, we adopted the fiscal year 22 budget back in May to get us started, the library started on spending for the fiscal year 21-22. There was a September final budget to capture any additional changes. We had a number of changes back in September. So this mid-year budget update is, that's what it is. It's truly to update any revenue changes, expenditure changes to get us through the next 3.5 months until we close the books in at June 30, 2022. So again, no major changes. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if that's okay with everybody. Oops. So you've had a chance to review the write-up here for the mid-year changes. Let me fix my screen for a bit. So the revenue changes in total, there's only about 235,000 increase, and expenditure changes almost 500,000 in increase for net expenditure change of 253,000. So on the revenue side, so the good news is 3 major funding sources. The county property tax payment appears to be on par as budgeted at 29 million. City of Sacramento general fund contribution at 13.6 million, so no changes there. And then parcel tax measures X and B at 6.4 million and 2.4 million respectively. So no changes anticipated. We're expecting the revenues to come in at budget or slightly higher than budget. So we'll keep it the way it is. We're anticipating a additional literacy grant funding in the amount of 27,000 from the state. And then the fee revenues we're recommending to decrease overall, so system-wide at 113,000. So these are fees for lost books and materials that we are attempting to collect. And then, as you know, with the COVID closure, the collection process is slowly trickling back in as we start to reopen. Other fees include print management. So these are small, printing fees throughout the library systems that we collect from the patrons and those that need to print documents. And then last bullet point on revenue changes. As you recall, the board had already adopted quarters 1 and 2 gifts, grants, and donations. So again, these are system-wide gifts, grants, and donations that had already been collected. The board had approved it in quarters 1 and 2 already. So this is just again to formalize the mid-year changes and capture all the expenditure and revenues into one comprehensive update. So any questions on the revenue side?
Have we have we had much of a depreciation, and should there be any concerns?
So Chair Gatewood, when you say depreciation, you're talking about
I'm trying to make sure I read it right. So loss, like, is there a red flag coming up, or you're not that concerned? It says we're over 285,000. Is that where we're at? We got more than we thought was going to come in, or we're down the 200,000?
So in terms of revenue losses, we're not anticipating any major revenue losses.
Okay,
The only decrease is this revenue decrease at 113,000 system-wide. Again, these are just for the miscellaneous fees that we collect for lost books and material. And that takes a long time because we have to work with our vendor to send notices, work with our collection department to make sure we send the right accounts to collection as well too. So this is a small amount in comparison to our overall budget. So no major concerns. Again, our three primary operating funds, the county fund, 29 million, City of Sacramento, 13.6, and the two parcel taxes. These are stable and there's no issues there at all.
okay, excellent.
Well, great question. Thank you for that. So on the expenditure side, again, this is the literacy grant from the state. This is mainly to match the revenue that we are bringing in from the state. We're recommending to increase summer reading at 100,000. So summer reading, as you know, is coming up fairly soon, and there's patrons, kids, adults, everyone throughout the county is excited about summer reading. So this is to put a budget for that program. Capital outlay. So we're recommending a 40,000 increase for a new service desk at the Del Paso Heights Library. So 40,000 there. And again, the 35,000 and the 285,000, these had already been adopted in quarters 1 and 2 by the board already. So again, just to formalize the mid-year schedule and capture everything in one page. So the second topic is the annual supplemental funding allocation for fiscal year 22. And then as you recall, the county minimum economic uncertainty / cash flow reserves is at 35%. So this is for the county only. And we met with the Finance Advisory Committee on February 4th, 2022 to go through the audited financial statements at the end of June 30, 2021. We looked at reserves, the 5-year forecast, any capital projects or system-wide improvements and equipment for the county branches as well. So after looking at all those components, the Finance Advisory is recommended or has recommended that we allocate 1.2 million to add to the existing supplemental fund allocation. And so table 1 below shows us how we got there. So when we closed the books last fiscal year, June 30, 2021, the county fund balance ended at 26.5 million. So that's this number right here. And so minus the 35% reserve based on our policy at 10.6 million, restricted reserves 3.6, and that includes the existing supplemental fund, donations, any deferred maintenance that we have in fund balance, and then minusing the 5-year forecast structural deficit needs. And then this number here is subject to change year over year. So just depending on the property values, assessed values. So we always check with the county assessor to determine what the next fiscal year assessed values might be and what she's anticipating to in terms of increase in property tax payments. So this number here, again, is subject to change year over year once we update the 5-year analysis. And the 4.3 million, this is for the system-wide improvements and any equipment that Jared and facilities, IT, security, and public services managers need, overall, and this is for system-wide. So in the end, we have a net 1.2 in allocable fund balance into the supplemental fund. So any questions there before I go to table 2? Okay, so just moving on to table number 2. So the way we allocate the supplemental fund based on the JPA language and agreement is by using 3 factors, so property taxes, circulation, and service area population percentages. So all these 3 factors are summed together, divide by 3. So that gives us our annual supplemental funding factor. So if you look at aisle 10, so this is proportionally allocated based on the percentages. So aisle 10 is at 31%, 3.3% for gold, 8% for Citrus Heights, and 19 or 18 for Elk Grove, 10% for Rancho Cordova, and 61.5% for the unincorporated areas. So giving us a total of 100% allocation. So when we close the books at fiscal year 21, June 30, 2021, our existing supplemental fund balances were 2.5 million. And again, these are the breakdown. So once we allocate the 1.2 million in fiscal year 22, Ileton will receive an additional 3,700, about 40,000 for gold, 94,000 for Citrus Heights, and ultimately 726,000 for the unincorporated area. So again, this is the breakdown and giving us that 1.2 million overall allocation. And so by the time we close the books, I'll be working with the finance team to make sure that we true up the fund balances. And so at the end of June 30, 2022, our total supplemental fund balances will be 3.7 million. And again, the breakdown will be about 14,000 for Ileton, gold at 120,000 approximately, Citrus Heights 252, Elk Grove almost 700,000, and Rancho Cordova almost 400,000, and 2.2 for the unincorporated branches within the county system. So the auditors will look at this as well too. So once we recommend it to the board for approval next week, we'll make sure we properly close the books and true up the numbers and make sure we have a supplemental fund balance of 3.7 million by the time we wrap up the audit for fiscal year 2022. So any other questions on this process and allocation? So hearing none, just moving on, position control. There are no recommended changes at this time. As I mentioned earlier, we had recommended a number of changes back in September. So thank you to the committee and the board for approving our recommended changes. And I know Christopher is here and he's happy with those changes as well too. So it makes life a little bit easier for him to manage in human resources and work with our public services team and the library director. So looking at next year's budget for fiscal year 22-23, staff are working on compiling the data. So we're collecting the, what we know so far. So the county property tax revenue is projected to increase by approximately 5% for fiscal year 23. So this is a year-over-year increase from fiscal year 22 to fiscal year 23. The City of Sacramento General Fund contribution, and again, this is either the general fund or Measure U combined. So it's either one or the other, or could be a combination of the contribution for the general fund. So that's anticipated to be at 700,000 for fiscal year 23. And this is built in our 5-year forecast and also in the city's 5-year forecast that we had worked with the former finance director, Don Holmes. And we are in communication with the new finance director, Emily Combs, as well too, to make sure we everybody's on the same page with this increase. And then the parcel taxes, this is for Measure X and B. And that's based on the San Francisco CPI increase. So year over year, it's typically around 3%. Sometimes it's slightly under, but it's not to exceed the 3% amount. And then at CalPERS, as you know, it's always on an upward trend. So we're anticipating, based on the latest actuarial valuation update, it's going to be almost 70 basis points, so 0.68, giving us a total increase of 19, well, actually employee contribution of 19.04% for fiscal year 22-23. So that's sort of a plans for next fiscal year. So we would like to ask the committee to recommend that we bring this to the board for approval at the next library board meeting, which is next week. So any questions from the committee or anything else? Peter, do you have anything to add?
Kevin, guys, you guys have any questions? Okay. Can I have a motion?
I'll move to move this item, the mid-year budget, to the full authority board for consideration.
Do I have a second?
Before I do, was there anything Mr. Coyle wanted to say? I think Johnny had opened it up, but I don't know if he got a head shake in there.
No, I had nothing to add.
Okay,
Johnny's done a great job with this, and it's pretty straightforward.
perfect. Second, thanks.
Roll call?
Sue Frost, Brett Guerra, Mai Vang,
Yes.
Kevin Spies,
Aye.
Garrett Gatewood.
Yes.
The motion passes with 3 members.
Excellent. I want that noted that it's also the fastest meeting time that we've ever had. I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 11:25.
We
See you,
would have been
everybody.
done even, I hate to say that we would have been done even faster if I would have showed up on time, but we're not gonna go there.
Have a great day,
Here, we're still
everyone.
looking at that beard. Keep it growing. Keep it growing.
Thanks.
We brought
Sorry I
you
was
a
late.
big beard. That's what we're
Bye,
looking.
everyone.
Bye,
Thank you.
guys.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.
Hey, Jen, do you have? a
Yeah.
minute? Chris, can you stick around for a bit too?
Hi, Heather. Bye, Jared.
Bye. Peter, I'll give you